Here's another one that turned up on eBay. I had gotten a number, son of Maryland. But interestingly enough, as a son of Maryland, he was never photographed in Maryland. I got into wondering, well, how many photographs were taken of Frederick Douglass? And he is the most photographed African American in the 19th century, and he's amongst the most photographed Americans of the 19th century, which is quite an accomplishment considering that a considerable part of his life he'd been a slave. And I have documented more than 75 images of Frederick Douglass, photographs that were taken of Frederick Douglass in his lifetime. This one turned up on eBay, and I came in one evening, I came in and told Nancy, I said, man, there's one turned up there I've never seen before. And got into doing some research. This was taken, what is interesting as part of the interpretation, taken in Hillsdale, Michigan. Well, how did Frederick Douglass, how in the world did he get out to Hillsdale, Michigan? Well, Frederick Douglass, this was in January of 1863, right after the Emancipation Proclamation had gone into effect. And he was traveling to Chicago to give a speech. And on the way, he stopped at Hillsdale College, still in existence today. And he spoke there, and he chose to speak there because Hillsdale was the first college in the Midwest to admit an African-American student. So it's nice condition carte de visite, and so I bid aggressively on it, and I ended up being able to acquire it. Not long after I got acquired, I got a email from the secretary of the college, the president of the College of Hillsdale College, and wanted me to call him. So I did, and he informed me that Hillsdale College had been the underbidders for the photograph, and they wanted to purchase the photograph from me. Well, I just gotten it. It's an important photograph. I found out another friend of mine had one, but it wasn't in very good condition. This was just absolutely crisp. I thought about it, and they were particularly interested because Judge Clarence Thomas was coming to Hillsdale to speak, and they wanted to get the image before he came there. So he made me a considerable offer for the image, and frankly, I told him, if it was a collector, or I wouldn't sell it, but the fact that it would be going to Hillsdale, I would sell it to them. What kind of blew me away was, man, I never had a president of a college ever want to talk to me. But they were very nice. He sent me his T-shirts and whatever too as part of the deal. So now Fred is now out at Hillsdale College, and they've been very, very happy with having him. And he ended up, actually, this image ended up there on the cover of the book. Here's another one we had also in the book in color, and we had in the exhibit in 2006, one of the most important African-American images of the Civil War period. And a friend of mine had, as you get into the backstory of these things, a friend of mine had purchased this at a kind of like an antique shop, relic shop here in Maryland, and he bought an item from the proprietor, and that was $12 and gave him a $20 bill. The guy said, I don't have any change. He turned off and took this image off the shelf, and he gave it to him for the $8. This is a quarter-plate ambrotype. It is the only known image of an African-American soldier with his family. And I had it in 2006 exhibit. I was then offered a considerable amount of money by Mr. Liljenquist, who was putting together an exhibit or a collection of Union soldiers that he donated last year to the Library of Congress. So now this image belongs to all of you. I was kind of glad. I was kind of nervous owning it because in an ambrotype, it's a photograph on glass, and just the responsibility of that, I just kind of felt kind of uptight about it. But great image, and I was glad to be able to have it here for display. Another wonderful image that is in the book that we didn't have available in 2006 is this view of Captain Robert A. Wilson, 1st Maryland Cavalry, Union Cavalry, taken to Camp Carroll in 1861. One of the interesting things that in fact still plagues photography today is a photograph art. In my opinion, I think this is one of the finest artistic photographs that was taken in Maryland during the Civil War. This is a full-plate ambrotype. It's about 5x7 on glass. It's been hand-tinted. The pose, it's just a wonderful image that is in a, actually the owner of this passed away, but his widow was willing to allow us to be able to use it for the book. Captain Robert Wilson was actually wounded in February of 1865, and he died about a week later. He died on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to his wife and family. We don't have them available today, but for the hardback editions of the book, limited editions, he will be on that cover. Another good, very interesting image in the book, Captain William Murray. Captain William Murray, captain in the 1st Maryland Battalion, always an interesting story out of the Dave Mark collection, been so kind to be able to allow for the exhibit and for the book. And Murray was admired by his men from a good Maryland family, had been with the Maryland Guard before the war, and on July 3rd they were on Culps Hill, and they were ordered to assault the Union entrenchments. Amazingly, they knew they were going into the Valley of Death. And what amazes me is that these men did their duty. The story is that, in fact, he went down the line of his men before they went forward, shook their hands, and said, "Goodbye, it is not likely we shall meet again." What kind of people were these? (1864). First time this has ever been published and out in public. Daniel R. Stilts was a photographer who in 1864 went around Baltimore and photographed all of the churches and houses of worship and all of the public buildings. Came up, and they were all published as carte de visites, and he sold them. It was a business venture. In 2006, I did a showcase of all the ones that we had available at the time. There's about 100 of them in the series. In the book, I have 55 of them we have reproduced. And also in the appendices of the book, I have a copy of his ad of all the other ones. So actually, for any of you collectors out there who want to get out and see the ones we have and the ones we don't have and be out looking for them, give you a project along the way. My favorite was this one. You know, you have the Washington Monument, you have the Maryland Institute, you have all the churches. The House of the Friendless, man. The House of the Friendless. When you got to this point, I guess, but on the bright side, there was some place for you to go. One of my favorite photographs of all, this is actually from an institution, New York Historical Society. It's also in our Civil War exhibit down here. This was taken down at Point Lookout. It's rare to start with, it's an interior. Subject matter, incredibly rare. Because for those of us interested in the Civil War, and particularly the Confederate experience, it's always been, what did these people look like? What did the Confederate soldiers look like when they were in the field? Most of the images that we have available were taken early in the war when Southern photographers had access to the chemicals, photographic chemicals, to be able to take images. But as the war went on, the effectiveness of the blockade increased. Fewer photographers had the ability to be able to do that. Most of it's studio photography anyway. Photographers, there was 2 different photographers down there at Point Lookout. And this was taken right at the end of the war with these Confederate prisoners taking the oath of allegiance. And notice they're broken up into groups of 3. Must have a Bible in between them, and they're taking their oath. They're swearing on those Bible to, obey their parole and to obey the laws of the United States. And when you look at it very carefully, and I wonder how far this extends, this looks like a garrison flag, a large American flag that they've hung up over here. And these guys are standing on the American flag. So, I mean, there they are, Confederate uniforms. They got their packs, and they got their bedrolls at their feet. That's what they look like. Honoring the memory, maybe a little better fed, but these gentlemen who have recreated the second Maryland was taken at the 125th anniversary of the Battle of Antietam, and I've also done a fair amount of living history and standing here in the corner with my mates. But as you can see, we've actually had more Big Macs than our ancestors. Now, one of the things I'd like to point out and Bert mentioned as part of the Civil War exhibit down the hall, I just launched this week the 3D show, which is about 5 minutes long, on the Battle of Antietam, that you would be able to see a lot of images, a few of the famous images, but be able to see them in 3D. Would like to point out, in fact, the gentleman who helped me technically to be able to put this together, John Richter, is here tonight. John, could you stand up? John is, thank you very much, John. John is a 3D guy extraordinaire. And he helped me with the first show that premiered at the opening of the exhibit last year. He helped me with the Antietam show. And then he has this new book, along with Bob Zeller and Gary Edelman from the boys from the Center of Civil War Photography. And that is also available there in our gift shop today. Basically, it's done with anaglyphs, which makes it an inexpensive way to be able to see it in 3D. And he has nailed it, man, to be able to take these images, make them into anaglyphs, get a printer that can print them so it works, and the images, you just jump off the page. It's an incredible experience to be able to look at them in 3D. Also like to point out, 2012, Daguerrean Symposium will occur here in November 8th through the 11th. We'll be right in this room. What will occur right in this room will be the greatest exhibit of Maryland daguerreotypes that has ever been put on. And this baby is only going to be up from the 8th through the 11th. So if you don't see it, you will have missed it. And it's going to feature, in part, my collection of Maryland daguerreotypes, where I have examples by most of the daguerreotypists who were operating in Maryland in the 1840s up through the mid-1850s. It will also feature some of these spectacular full plates that were from the Peel collection that are now here, including the 3 panoramic views of Baltimore full plate daguerreotypes 6x8 that were taken from the top of the shot tower. And daguerreotypes, because they are a photograph on a silver plate, they can be difficult to be able to see, but we have special showcases that will make it possible for you to be able to really interact and really see these images. So it's 4 days only that will be here. You don't have to be a member of the Daguerreotype Society, but I'm sure if you want to join, you can go to their website, find out more about them, all the activities. And then on Saturday, they will be down at the Renaissance Hotel. There will be buying and selling vintage photographs, and it will be Daguerrean world and early photography hot and heavy here for 4 days.